Today on the Pro-Life Podcast, the legislature is done and we won, we lost, the good, the bad, the ugly. We are going to talk about it. Let's get started. Happy Thursday, Pro-Life family. Welcome to the table. Dr. John Seago in here with us, man.
Happy to be back.
Good to see you. You've been in that amazing town of Austin for a while and haven't seen you for a bit, but
occupational hazard is spending a lot of time in Austin.
I mean, the landscape's pretty. There's that.
It's a very nice building. I always say the Texas Capitol is a very nice building. Just don't necessarily ask what happens inside.
Yeah, fair.
Okay, friends. Well, coffee and introductions.
Kim Schwartz, Director of Media and Communication.
Dr. John Seago, serve as President for Texas Right to Life.
Klingerman, IT Director, and I don't know what I'm doing in this chair, but hey, well,
we're happy to have you, Brett.
We keep doing this, and you keep having me back, so we'll just keep doing this till nobody wants me in here anymore.
Fair enough.
Okay, session is over. Texas legislative session is done. They do this every 2 years for about 6 months.
5 months.
5 months. Here we are in June. It's over. We're high-fiving each other that the legislature solved all of Texas's problems, and
well, some people
they did it, you guys,
yeah,
and stuff. But
What's
did
the
they
rundown?
really?
Yeah, I mean, big picture. This session, lawmakers did help build a pro-life state. They did help us build a pro-life culture, which is a big goal of ours. However, they did ignore the biggest threat to women and preborn children, which are abortion pills. Mm-hmm. And so we had a higher awareness of this threat, but ultimately we did not make any progress on stopping abortion pills being mailed into the state.
Man, that's awful. Because, I mean, like you said, that is the biggest threat. And it's good. We're going to talk about some of the victories, because there were a lot of victories. This was...
There were some good things.
Yeah, a lot of good things came out of this session, and so we don't want to ignore those. But you do need to prioritize, where is the biggest impact you can make? And the reality is that's abortion pills. There's 19,000 Texans who have ordered these pills online within a single year. We've talked about that a million times. And there's not any signs of that slowing down.
Yep.
And so lawmakers, they had the opportunity to say, we agree that this is a threat, and Texas needs to be the one leading and showing the other states on how to combat this issue. And instead, how did this bill die? The bill that would have tackled abortion pills, the Women and Child Protection Act. Why was that fumbled? Where did that go?
Yeah, so I mean, at the end of the day, it was the House of Representatives.
Right.
Unfortunately, our system is built to kill legislation, which as a conservative, I like that because, trust me, there were a lot of bad ideas this session. We had to personally stop some legislation that would have done more damage
But I thought we only sent the brightest and the best. Brilliant ideas to Austin.
I maybe if we have time, we can talk about some of the bad ideas. So we like that, right? We like that our laws are not rewritten every 2 years, but whenever you have legislation that's going to save lives and respond to the radical strategies the enemy has been using to kill Texas babies, we had legislation that did die in that process. And ultimately, we got out of the Senate. We got to the House. We had a fantastic hearing. One of the most encouraging days of the session was having our House hearing where we were hearing from pregnancy centers that were sharing personal stories. We had some women sharing their personal stories about their experience with abortion pills. We had lawyers. We had some pro-life doctors. It was a phenomenal hearing. However, after that hearing, our bill just sat in that committee for 4 weeks. And so the chair of that committee, Chairman Ken King of the House State Affairs Committee, is responsible. I mean, there's really nowhere else to point the finger. He's responsible for sitting on this life-saving bill for 4 weeks, which in a short session, 140 days, stopping a bill in the process for 4 weeks ultimately kills the legislation.
Yeah. And it's not like, I would have moved this sooner if I could. There were other bills where we had the hearing, was it tail end of April? Had the hearing at the end of April. And then there were other bills, even a pro-life bill, that he had a hearing after that. and passed it out of the committee faster than the Women and Child Protection Act. So
Yep.
obviously, like, it was possible to move this bill faster, and that's where you get to the question of, what are you prioritizing?
That's the key word, priorities. Like, what are your priorities? Because they do have thousands of bills. They have a lot. I mean, they're debating daylight savings time, property taxes, school choice.
Preach.
There's a lot of things that they're debating, a lot of things that you and I are like, oh, I'm glad they got to, this whole daylight savings thing. Wherever you are on that, right?
Honestly.
But ultimately, it's about priorities. What are you pushing? And from the beginning of session, Texas Right to Life, we were very clear with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the senators. These are the two priorities. We were very clear with the House leadership. They had a speaker's race, so we didn't know who the speaker was going to be. But we had, even before that we figured that out, we were already messaging to them. And as soon as we had the speaker, we met with his team and said, here are the two priorities. I have a 15-year-old son at home, and we're in summer now, so that's great. But a couple of months ago, he comes home with a report card, and he's like, Dad, look, I got an A in PE. Okay, like, that's exciting. That's a good thing. We can celebrate that. That's not the priority, right? That's not really what we need to put our attention on.
How's that math score doing?
Exactly. We've got some English that we got to pay attention to, right? We got our Spanish grade is struggling a little bit here, okay?
I feel that.
So these are, we need to now shift our priorities. In the end of that last quarter of his school year, we had to shift our priorities. What are we spending the most time and attention on? Now, it's not, maybe they think this is demeaning, but the legislature's the same way. We got to tell them, hey, I don't care about PE, okay?
Right.
I care about these important grades. And these important issues that you have to focus on. And that's why we at Texas Right to Life try to be so clear with them. We have the bills. We don't just say, hey, do something about abortion pills. Hey, do something to stop the crazy, pro-abortion activists that are targeting Texas. We don't leave it up for them to guess. We say, these are the two priorities. And unfortunately, the House refused to accomplish this simple goal of passing both. They did pass one of them, which is going to the governor, which the governor signed into law. However, they did not address what are we going to do about the, like you said, 19,000 orders of abortion pills coming into the state. So
I was telling Ashley earlier today, one of the great victories of this session is the friends we made along the way. Like, I'm being serious though. Like, I was really encouraged to see so many people actually take part in the legislative process. Whenever we said, hey, this bill is moving, we need your help, they would do it. Even if we said that 3 times within the same week about different bills, and I kind of felt bad about that. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm asking you guys of a lot. But everybody, I think, really came through. Everybody who just took 2 seconds to click send an email, and it went off to the committee members. People actually called the lawmakers, which is a big deal. That can be kind of scary. And people who showed up to testify. We have a video of some of the highlights of the pregnancy centers, like you said. Our good friend Lindsay, who used to run an abortion organization and came. And now, and she testified.
Friend, it's so weird. I'm so happy about it.
She's great.
Yeah. So, and then Ava, a young woman who chose life whenever her baby was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, and said, your baby's not going to make it. Do you want to go to another state and have an abortion, or do you want to carry this child to term? And she said, I want to spend every moment that I can with my child, no matter how long or short that is. And so this, I think she's 19 or 20-year-old now, and she helped pass a major bill.
Yeah.
So we really do appreciate that. It shows just there's not one person who's going to go into the Capitol and make a difference. Not even you. You're not going to be the superhero who runs in and saves the day, but everybody stepping up and doing their part, it all makes a difference. That's what the body of Christ is supposed to be.
And I'd say that, you think of where we are historically, this is the high point of kind of okay, the pro-life movement is back. I mean, it really is like that, because 2 years ago it was very disappointing just how little attention, even some of our friends in other organizations and and some of the elected officials were like, we can't really talk about that right now. We're not sure how the election is going to go. So it's really just kind of after Roe was overturned, we hit this kind of low point, and there was this lull in activism, interest, elected officials, and I feel like this session we really overcame that we had elected officials that put together a letter to Chairman King. And I mean, they did that without us. We didn't write the letter. I didn't even know it was until they posted it. I didn't even know that was in the works. Is these elected officials, over 40 elected officials signed a letter saying this is a priority bill towards the end of the session. We got to get this moving. You had Students for Life of America came in, SBA the Susan B. Anthony list came in for it. We had the Republican Party of Texas.
Human Coalition.
Well, they were with us from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so you had this real great coalition that was very encouraging for us because we kind of saw, that low point before. And it's like, okay, people are finally paying attention to this threat of abortion pills. And we would have loved to see that become law. But Ashley, our legislative director, is the first to say, there have been times in the past where we thought we were looking at defeat and the Lord had a better plan.
True.
He had a better, and so maybe there's something in the policy that needs to improve. Maybe we're going to realize there is a development or an angle for that piece of legislation that now we can push with this momentum. We can trust the Lord with the results, but I think one thing we can absolutely be thankful for, like you're saying, is this coalition that was built this session, paying attention to this threat to life.
Totally.
Okay, well, we've talked about the bad, but I hate ending on bad notes, so we have to talk about the good after this break.
Do you have a cell phone? Do you have pro-life values? Do you like saving money? Well, Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, and they've partnered with Texas Right to Life. So if you'll go to patriotmobile.com/Texas Right to Life or call 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT, and use the checkout code TRTL, they'll give you a free month of service. So make the switch today, have your money support causes you believe in, and save and get a whole free month. Make the switch right now. What are you doing still watching this? Make the switch right now.
Want to support a cause you love and look great doing it? Visit the Texas Right to Life online store. You'll find t-shirts, hats, mugs, bags, everything you need to rep the pro-life movement wherever you go. Plus, you'll get free shipping on every order. Listeners like you, yes, you, can get 15% off when you use code PODCAST at checkout. Visit store.texasrighttolife.com today to shop with purpose and make a difference.
Welcome back. We talked about bad things in the legislature. Let's talk about good things. I like talking about good things.
There were some good things.
Let's talk about stupid things that died.
Oh, yeah.
First.
Okay.
What did we kill?
There were a lot of bad bills. So y'all spent plenty of time talking about the bad child support bill.
That was...
That incentivized...
My God.
men to coerce, pressure, become an agent of death. You love that term. Become forcing this issue and trying to advocate for abortion. So y'all already covered that one.
We did 2 weeks ago.
That bill did die.
4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago. 2 episodes ago.
There was a memorial to Cecile Richards, who, yes, is a well-known Texan, but also was the head of Planned Parenthood and was responsible for millions of abortions, not just on Texas children, but across the country. The House was ready to not just, recognize her work that was non-controversial, actually to recognize her work for Planned Parenthood. And so it was a terrible resolution. So thankfully, Representative Luther was working on getting a bunch of Republicans to stop that resolution.
Thank the Lord.
Yeah, it became a big fight. It was great. She did a good job. There was another bill that had to do with emergency contraception. And this one is tough. And this is really where it's like, we are pro-life even when it's inconvenient politically, when it is tough to have these debates. And this is really where our Ashley and me, we really were like, okay, this is a bill that mandates every hospital, every doctor to offer emergency contraception to victims of sexual assault. And so right now they can offer it. It's already paid for, but this mandated it. that and for pro-lifers, that's a problem because emergency contraception is an abortifacient. It causes that embryo to die. And so there's a lot of debate about, well, what's the statistics? Is it, what's the likelihood that it will happen? The FDA has acknowledged that's how these drugs work. And so for pro-lifer, we were against it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, to our surprise, we were the only pro-life group against it. So we're in the Capitol. We're the only ones against this bill, saying, no, do not mandate every hospital, every physician to have to offer this. There were not even conscience protection language in the bill.
That was going to be my first question.
And honestly, that's ended up what killed the bill, is that we drafted an amendment in the Senate saying, hey, if you're going to do this, at the very least, protect our pro-life doctors, our pro-life, the nurses in the emergency room that they want to save life.
Yeah.
They don't want to be mandated to offer abortifacient emergency contraception. And those that were proposing, for the bill that they were actually proposing the legislation, they said that defeats the whole purpose of the bill. Is that the reason they were bringing the mandate is because some people had conscientious objections to it to begin with. So it kind of showed, like, they know what it was.
Yeah.
They know that it's abortifacient, that pro-lifers can't get on board, and they were trying to strong-arm it. But that bill passed the House.
Yikes.
So it passed the House. We were the only ones against it. We got flack because, yes, it's victims of sexual assault, which, Ashley did a phenomenal job of telling the Senate, hey, there are a lot of things we can do for these women. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of things that are life-affirming, that are actual counseling, help, making sure they have, all the support they need to overcome, to hold those accountable that are committing these horrific crimes, holding them accountable, accomplishing justice in this case. This is not it.
Yep.
Mandating that we kill the baby, that we offer drugs that could kill the baby, that's not solving anything. That's a tough message in the Capitol. And I was sitting at the table when the other 4 people at the table were for the bill, and I'm the one against it, just as some dude, of course. That was not comfortable, but we have to be pro-life even when it's politically inconvenient. And we are happy that bill, the Senate did recognize, okay, this bill is not being brought in good faith. This bill is actually being brought to stop pro-lifers from acting like they're pro-life. And they ultimately killed that bill. So a lot of bad bills, thankfully, that we saw. Thankfully, a lot of them were killed and never got to the governor's desk.
Thank God. Jinx.
Well, who else are you going to thank for that?
Yep, true.
Okay.
What
So,
else?
Any other dead bills we want to highlight?
Nope.
Okay. So on to the successes.
Okay.
The wins.
The goods. So there were plenty of good things that were passed. We made a lot of progress in the space of building a pro-life culture. And this is one area where we always bring bills to the table, yes, to stop abortion, to stop the craziness that we're seeing from the pro-abortion side, but also being pro-life is more than just saying no to abortion. It's saying yes to life. It's saying yes to these mothers that have chosen to be parents. And so we have a lot of great bills. One of the best ones that we have talked about is perinatal palliative care, Senate Bill 1233.
I love this one.
Okay, all right, well, tell us about it.
Okay.
You seem very excited.
I couldn't tell if I was saying something wrong.
No, you're saying all the right things, and I think that this is just one of perhaps the most impactful, maybe not from a numbers perspective, but definitely from a heart perspective, because let me just walk you through this situation. Let's say you find out you're pregnant, and you're going to the hospital, you're doing all the tests and everything, routine, and you get to the point where the doctor says, hey, something is wrong with your baby. This child will not survive past birth. If you give birth to this child, he won't live very long. And obviously at that point, like, everyone's heart breaks. The life that you imagine for your child at that point just like fades away. All the dreams that you had hoped for, it's all very different now. And what makes this worse is that whenever parents get that information, usually the first thing that they hear is, why don't you just have an abortion and try again?
Yeah.
And that makes it 1,000,000 times worse. And so what this bill would do, Senate Bill 1233, would require those doctors and hospitals instead of saying, hey, why don't you go to another state and have an abortion, they give them a list of saying, here are some nonprofits and organizations that can help you honor your baby's life and take care of your baby and, cherish every moment that you have, no matter how long or short that child's life is going to be. And just think of the hope that breathes into that situation. You just received this, like in this moment of despair, or difficulty, where you think like everything that I thought I was going to have with my child is different now. But there is something I can hope for. There is something I can hold on to. And I think that this bill is going to make a world of difference for those parents to actually know that there are people who are going to help them in this tough situation. It's going to help them heal from that trauma more, the parents, and it's going to honor this child's life. And even if that's going to be a really short life, a few minutes after birth, maybe a few hours, a few days, but it's going to make a difference because now it actually says, like, we're going to cherish this child's life. They give a lot of, what kind of support have you seen, like with Able Speaks and other nonprofits that they offer?
Yeah, so it's a directory. So the state's putting together a directory of these ministries, and so it's not just the medical. So there are, medical specialists in perinatal palliative care to help these families know what their options are. But also there's these groups like Able Speaks and so Johnny and Friends is another one. These groups that they are support kind of networks for families that have children with disabilities. And they've been there, they've received the diagnosis. Some of them, hey, their child did pass away, and this is how they dealt with that. And then some are, hey, we got a bad diagnosis. It ended up being a struggle. However, look, our child is 5 years old. Our child is 7 years old. They outlived the diagnosis. So just having that, and Ava, you mentioned earlier, she was the star witness on this one.
Totally.
She came and she said, hey, I chose life, but I was swimming against the current on this one. Is all the medical advice, all the medical pressure was going the opposite direction, and she chose life for her baby. But she said, I was fighting against everybody. Nobody was on my side. And the thing for us is, like, there were groups that could have been on your side. There were doctors that specialize in perinatal palliative care that could have been with you. And that's what the whole point of this bill is, to connect them. So thanks to Senator Hancock and Representative Valerie Swanson, good friends of the organization, that got this one finally across the finish line. So we're happy to see that one.
That's awesome.
Another one in that kind of building a pro-life state was Senate Bill 31. And this was a tough bill from a policy perspective because we needed to walk a very fine line. But we were trying to make sure that women received care immediately in life-threatening conditions. There were a lot of doctors that were confused or had heard different perspectives on our pro-life laws, and we wanted to make sure that in Texas we protect babies from the violence of abortion, and we protect their moms if there's a medical condition that threatens the mom's life. And so it was tough. We were working with some stakeholders that do not share our worldview, have a very different perspective when it comes to life. And so it was not an easy one at all. There was some friends of ours that misunderstood what the bill was. They were worried it would create loopholes. We worked very long hours at the negotiating table, drafting amendments to make sure it doesn't create any loopholes. Because, of course, these other medical groups, they brought to the table all kinds of exceptions. They wanted a mental health exception. They wanted a fetal abnormality exception, the opposite direction of what we were just talking about. They wanted all kinds of exceptions in the law, and so we had to negotiate that. But we ended up with a good bill that says, yes, Texas can do both. We're going to provide clarity to the law. We're also going to educate doctors and lawyers on this. We're going to make sure that there's no excuse that these doctors and the lawyers that are telling the doctors what to do, that they have no excuse to misrepresent the law. And so if we find now that the law is going to go into effect soon, that is happening in a hospital, we can hold them accountable. Hey, you have no excuse for misrepresenting Texas law and putting women in jeopardy. So those are great opportunities to build a pro-life culture on the kind of caring for women in those circumstances.
Totally. That's a really good win.
So the other one was adoption.
Yeah.
Is we did
Okay.
have, this is an
Yes,
area we've
yes.
been trying to build coalitions. We've been trying to talk about adoption. And one of the biggest problems we found is that, Ashley was fantastic on this. She was working with every office saying, hey, whenever a woman is facing an unexpected pregnancy, the data shows us that only 1% of women with an unexpected pregnancy choose adoption. And it's like, so practically speaking, in her mind, there's only two options. There's parenting or abortion. Even in Texas, women are thinking that way. I'm parenting or I'm having an abortion. And so when we look at really where is this stigma, where is this kind of, where are we kind of missing that piece, it was education. And that a lot of women think, well, adoption is not an option because I don't want my child to go into foster care. I don't want them to be, in that system run by the state, in a ward of the state with no family. That was kind of like, I want to avoid that for my child. And so what this bill did, Senate Bill 1207, starts adoption education at the high school level. And so there are a lot of things the state of Texas said, hey, at the high school level, we start talking about parenting, we start talking about different lifestyle things, kind of decisions, in addition to the health, addition to, kind of human biology, that discussion. There's also just some kind of basic life skills type curriculum. And this is where that fits in is, hey, here's what adoption is. There's the difference between private adoption and foster care. If a mom chooses adoption for her child, she is not going directly to foster, right? That private adoption is a very loving option where you get to partner with another couple that the Lord has called to be parents, but they don't have a child. And so really just kind of like being able to educate and get rid of some of those myths. And so that is a slow, right? That's an educational thing. That's a slow build, is we have to continue to build this pro-life culture and addressing some of the lies. So that adoption education was a really great step. And then of course, thriving Texas families, making sure that those adoption agencies, pregnancy centers, that they're fully funded to be doing their ministry across the state.
Right. We got $200 million for Thriving Texas Families. That's state funding for pregnancy centers, adoption agencies, maternity homes. The program needed $210 million, but the other good thing that came with this program is that you'll remember earlier this year, a state agency was like, hey, what if we just mess up everything about your pro-life funding? Wouldn't that be great? And they
It's a
thought
great
that
program you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
100%. And so the state legislature passed a bill putting a little more reins on the state agency, saying, what were some of the reins? I can't remember actually.
So that the bill did or that the agency did?
That the bill did.
Oh, yeah. So the bill said you had to be a life-affirming entity. And so, unfortunately, there were some hospitals that were affiliated with Planned Parenthood that were getting some money from this program. Even though the program was supposed to be pro-life, there have been, kind of some, to put it nicely, some providers that were outside the scope of the program. I think that's the most PC
Very
way to
polite.
say
You
it.
are so kind.
That's a very polite way to say it.
So we're just simply telling the agency to get back on track, to get back within the focus of this program, which is life affirming. Like you said, pregnancy centers, adoption agencies, maternity homes, and a safe place where these women are not going to hear the abortion propaganda.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with a lot of government-funded entities right now, is even if a pregnant woman goes there for addiction counseling or for social services, they are still being bombarded with the pro-abortion messages that entity has embraced.
Right.
And said, hey, I know you're here to get over addiction, but did you know just over in New Mexico, abortion is still legal? And so even though that's not part of that government program, that's the environment she's in whenever we fund, her dealing with, addiction over there in that specific provider. And so we're trying to say that's not going to happen in the Thriving Texas Family program. All right, last thing.
Yeah.
So we actually did have one priority pass.
Okay, that's
So
true.
we gave them 2 priorities. They failed on the abortion pills, which was the biggest amount, the biggest threat. But to their credit, thankfully for the Senate, for the House, they did pass Senate Bill 33, which stopped cities for paying for that abortion travel. So that was a priority we set out at the beginning of the session. We filed a lawsuit against San Antonio. Yes. We think it's unconstitutional, but this is a shortcut. Let's just make sure it's clear in law they cannot spend taxpayer dollars on paying for abortion travel. Yep. That did pass. It's already been signed by the governor. It is law, and unfortunately now San Antonio and Austin are hustling to try to get the money out the door before September 1st. Shock. But that's a different story. But we at least now have in law, cities cannot spend their taxpayer dollars on abortion travel and logistics costs. So
seemed clear before, but now it's
now there is no denying that it is the law.
Even Austin City Council can be like, I can't get around that.
So
one.
thanks to pro-life to pro-life doctor Senator Donna Campbell leading on that one, and then Representative Candy Noble helped us on that priority in the House, and so that was the one priority that got across the finish line.
Yeah, thank God.
Cool.
So I think our biggest takeaway from this session is, we're very encouraged that there is higher awareness about the threats to life. Good. We're kind of over that kind of sleepy period after Dobbs, right? Where a lot of pro-lifers didn't know where we're going. A lot of our elected officials wanted to act like there was nothing more to do on this issue.
Obviously.
I think we're over that. And so now it's really time for pro-lifers to double down on education. And so, with our education, conference coming up, for example, the Convention for Life we will be talking about these issues. We will be talking about how crazy the other side has gotten and how important it is for us to educate our neighbors, our friends, our churches, and then to turn that into life-saving activism. And so really this is kind of like an important point, is until next session, until the next political opportunity comes up, we really need to build those coalitions, strengthen our friends and our churches to be ready to save more lives.
I'm a big fan.
I concur. Well, friends, if you want to educate yourself on these issues, the event is coming up June 21st. Links below. Convention for Life, we will be there.
Yep.
It's going to be fun. I always learn stuff every year. I've worked in this field for now a long time. Not as long as John.
A little bit.
And I still learn stuff with these things.
Oh, yeah. No, the speakers, there are some names on the program, and that's the thing that always gets me, is a lot of people are like, I had no idea who this was, but they were great. The personal stories, the experts, just phenomenal quality of speakers that will be there to represent it from all over the country, all different fields and backgrounds, and it's a fantastic event, and it would be great to have our friends there.
If you can't be there, live stream's like $10. Seriously. Even last year, my pastor attended. He was like, I hadn't thought all the way through the IVF issue like that.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's like, wow. He's like, I'm a pro-life guy.
Yeah.
I'm hardcore pro-life, but I had not thought all the way through that issue.
Yep.
The way you guys sat there and presented, it was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. So you can learn something.
Yep.
So share friends, neighbors, pastors, even could learn something at this event. So we hope to see you there. Links below. Thanks for watching, friends. We appreciate you. See you in 2 weeks.